India deploys 10,000 troops. Escalation of anti-communist efforts. Ladakh's secret. Constructing China's strategic space. India accelerates high-altitude readiness. U.S. helicopters overwhelm PLA. Deepening U.S.-India military alliance. Joint exercises deter adversaries, breaking CCP's strategic encirclement. Since 2020, tensions have flared up once again along the India-China border, persisting to this day despite 21 rounds of negotiations between the generals of both sides, with China showing no intention of withdrawing from the border. In response, India has deployed an additional 10,000 troops from the Kashmir Plateau to the northern regions of Uttar and Himachal Pradesh along the border with China. These troops cover the western and middle segments of the line of actual control, which spans a total of 532 kilometers. Currently, the spotlight is on the Ladakh region, nested between the western end of the Himalayas and the Karakoram Range to the north. This crucial valley area is now the focal point of strategic interest. If Ladakh were to fall under Chinese control, India would face a severe challenge. China could also further leverage Ladakh's strategic position to launch attacks on other regions of India, including New Delhi. This also means India would lose access to Ladakh's rich natural resources, including minerals and water resources, which would significantly hinder its economic development. Politically, the loss of control over Ladakh would place immense pressure domestically. India's military reinforcement in Ladakh aims to quickly mobilize forces for potential strikes or deterrence against the Chinese-Pakistan economic corridor. Strategically, if a conflict were to break out in the Western Pacific, India's control over Axi Chin would significantly enhance Western countries' influence on China's western borders. From Axi Chin, access to the western part of Tibet, Kashgar, and western Xinjiang could pose a challenge to China's public safety and its influence in Xinjiang, Central Asia, and Tibet. Moreover, it could facilitate the separation of Tibet and Xinjiang, impacting China's global strategic position. Furthermore, the redeployment of these 10,000 troops from Kashmir to the Ladakh borders reflects India's relationship with Pakistan, suggesting that tensions may not be as high, possibly due to ongoing negotiations. Hence, India's main concern lies with China. Although negotiations might resolve their problems with Pakistan, the same cannot be expected for their dispute with China. Getting ready for a potential, possibly major conflict will demand a sizable military presence in the area. Thus, the current deployment of 10,000 troops is just the beginning. The former chairman of the Indian Chiefs of Staff Committee has emphasized the vital role of the eastern Ladakh region in the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor project. He specifically highlighted Kashgar in China as the starting point of this corridor. Regarding the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, the feasibility of constructing an oil pipeline from Iran remains in question, considering the substantial costs and management efforts involved. China currently transports oil from Central Asia through northern Xinjiang, so the priority lies in stabilizing this region to expand into China's strategic areas of southern Xinjiang and western Tibet. Hence, the standoff at the India-China border isn't just a belligerent conflict, but a significant component of global geopolitics. India's military deployment in the region is part of a broader global strategic positioning, highlighting the borderland's significance well beyond what is commonly known. In terms of military deployment along the India-China border, India has evidently shown their preparedness with a force of 600,000 troops, complemented by a range of advanced equipment. These include resonance drones, electronic jamming devices, and drones imported from the USA. In contrast, China's deployment seems limited to 60,000 troops, facing a significant challenge in maintaining control over the Axi Chin region against India's vast military capabilities and advanced equipment. With a force of 7.4 million, more than twice the size of India's military, the Chinese army must prioritize defending its eastern coastal regions. As a result, only around 10% of its troops, roughly 740,000 soldiers, can be allocated to the western India-China border. These troops must possess exceptional fitness levels to operate effectively in the challenging high-altitude conditions of the region. India is mostly surrounded by the sea, so there aren't significant maritime threats. This allows for troops to be deployed to the borders without much worry. Even sending half of the 3.5 million strong army wouldn't be a significant concern. Regarding troop mobilization, China must relocate troops from low altitude areas thousands of kilometers away to the high altitude border. If traveling by land, at least 1,000 kilometers would be at altitudes above 4,000 meters. In contrast, India can easily transition from low to high altitudes over a distance of about 300 kilometers. In high altitude mountainous combat, helicopters play a crucial role. China relies on Russian models like the Mi-17V7 and Mi-171E, as well as domestically produced Z-8G and Z-20 helicopters. India's helicopter fleet comprises top-tier Western models, including the AH-64D Apache attack helicopter and the CH-47 Chinook transport helicopter, among the best available. Even if they're not of the highest grade, they are still French helicopters. Russian helicopters are considered the last option for India. Of course, warfare depends on tactics and operations, but advanced equipment gives India a significant head start. In recent years, India has not only upgraded its arsenal, but also significantly improved its border infrastructure, such as roads, bridges, and airports, greatly enhancing its rapid deployment and operational capabilities. Additionally, India has introduced tanks, artillery, and helicopters suitable for high-altitude combat, comprehensively boosting its high-altitude warfare capabilities. India's border forces have also conducted joint military exercises with the USA, learning techniques from Western military leaders, which has greatly assisted in enhancing their capabilities against China. In terms of tactical exchanges and technology sharing, India has gained a considerable edge. If a conflict were to occur, India currently appears to have an advantage in military equipment and strategic resources, especially in helicopter operations and high-altitude combat capabilities. At the India-US Defense Acceleration Ecosystem Summit in New Delhi, India's Defense Secretary Giridhar Araman revealed that US intelligence support was swift during the 2020 Galwan Valley clash, sensing a potential repeat of the 2020 scenario. India is once again reaching out to the US, hoping for continued support. To understand India's stance, it's crucial to examine China's recent actions in the area. In the west of India, China has undertaken the Gwadar Port project in Pakistan, an integral part of the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor and a strategic point directly facing India. In the south, China has acquired the operating rights to the Sri Lanka's Hambantota port for 99 years, essentially placing a covert listening device on India's southern coastline. Meanwhile, further east of India, at the end of last year, China signed an agreement with Myanmar for the Chakpyu port, a crucial point for connecting China's southwest to the Indian Ocean. The United States has calculated that if Chakpyu port becomes operational, it could resolve China's issue of rerouting its ships through the Strait of Malacca. Considering 62% of its crude oil and 17% of its natural gas passes through there, these ports will likely see China establishing military bases in the future, making India feel strategically encircled and under considerable pressure. On the Maldives side, President Mohamed Muizzu, elected in September last year, immediately called for the withdrawal of Indian troops. In January, he visited Beijing, and on March 4th, he signed a security cooperation agreement with China to deepen military collaboration. Additionally, there's a Chinese research vessel, the Xiangyang Hong 3, which has been active in the waters near India. Despite its scientific mission, there are concerns about potential ulterior motives behind its operations. According to American think tanks, China's Navy could use the seabed maps and oceanic data gathered from these purported scientific expeditions to support its naval deployments. The Maldives, located between the Arabian Sea and the Bay of Bengal, is a strategic point for merchant ships traveling from the Suez Canal and Cape of Good Hope to Asia via the Malacca Strait. Historically, the Maldives has fallen within India's sphere of influence. Prior to India's navy starting the repatriation of Indian troops from the Maldives, they inaugurated a newly constructed base for operational surveillance on Minicoy Island in India's Lakshadweep archipelago. These developments pose significant challenges for India, raising concerns that China's activities in the region could impact its strategic security. India's recent interactions with the United States seem to be a move to counter this situation. The United States aims to separate Tibet and Xinjiang from China to weaken its influence, with India serving as a gateway to these regions. India, aiming to assert its dominance in the Indo-Pacific and address border disputes with China, sees the need for US support to bolster its own strength. This alignment of anti-communist strategic interests naturally fosters stronger military cooperation between the two nations. In December 2023, the Vajra Prahar joint military exercise between the US and India emphasized mountain warfare, aiming to enhance combat coordination and bolster the operational capabilities of both India and US forces. This exercise represents a significant advancement in strengthening their strategic partnership. During the 2023 COOP India exercise, the US deployed heavy military equipment, including B-1B bombers and F-15E fighter jets. Strategic bombers are usually deployed only in joint exercises with close allies, highlighting India's pivotal role in the US Indo-Pacific strategy. In February last year, the US showcased the F-35 stealth fighter jet for the first time at an Indian air show. Rear Admiral and senior Indian defense official Michael Bezchowski commented that this was to demonstrate the strength and closeness of the US-India partnership. On September 8th last year, Bloomberg reported that Indian government sources revealed the Indian military's consideration of providing logistical aid to the US military in case of Chinese military intervention in Taiwan. This aid might involve fuel supplies, medical equipment, and potentially opening a secondary front along the India-China border. While the timeline for the study's conclusion remains uncertain, the Indian military has been instructed to accelerate its readiness efforts. If India were to open a new front, it would signal a potential escalation toward a war scenario. Additionally, any US bases established in India would be highly secure, rendering ground infiltration, guerrilla tactics, and missile attacks largely futile. This could result in a substantial loss of territory for China. This development indicates a mounting tension in the Indo-Pacific region over the past year. The United States is not only in negotiations with India, but also actively seeking proposals from other countries like the Philippines and Vietnam. There is even potential for nations in the Middle East and Central Asia, such as Kazakhstan, to join this coalition. For instance, when providing airport maintenance services, it's crucial to ensure that the runways can withstand potential missile attacks from China or Russia. This requires deploying a range of anti-aircraft missile systems around the airport. The expenses and manpower required for these preparations are substantial. These actions suggest that the Biden administration is engaging in extensive discussions with various countries, contemplating an escalation in efforts to contain China and potentially preparing for a global conflict. This reflects a comprehensive global strategy spanning political, military, and economic aspects. As cooperation between India and the United States strengthens, this is anticipation that both countries will create a new geopolitical dynamic in Central Asia, as well as the regions of Tibet and Xinjiang.